Well, welcome to another episode of the Texas Titans podcast. In fact, this is the Thanksgiving week edition of the Texas Titans podcast. And I got to tell you, I am so terribly thankful for each and every one of you for taking the time to listen to these episodes. And to any of my past guests that I've interviewed on the Texas Titan podcast, if you're listening, I just want to say a special thank you to you. Every one of these folks that during this first year, this first season of our broadcast said yes to sitting down with me, they had nothing to gain from doing this. It was all purely to help me. It was a favor to me. Some of them that I didn't even know. I met through introductions, but most of them were friends that I thought had cool stories, that had done some remarkable things that I wanted to share with you, my audience. And they sat down and took, time out of their day. And like I've said on this podcast before, the single most valuable, non-renewable resource any of us have is time. And what you, the listener, are deciding to do right now is invest a little bit of that time in listening to the Texas Titan podcast. And I'm so grateful for that. I do not take that for granted. And to my guests that have been on the show, you took the time during this first season, whenever I'm just trying to figure out what the heck I'm doing, to sit down with me. You took it seriously. And actually, I think given the numbers of downloads, considering we are now in the thousands of downloads for the Texas Titan podcast, I'm grateful that you took it seriously, because obviously listeners are taking this podcast seriously. So thank you all for sharing your stories with our listeners. I'm so grateful. And so with that, that's my Thanksgiving message. I hope all of you have a terribly blessed and great Thanksgiving season and holiday season this year. I have a lot to be thankful for, and this is my favorite time of year. Now, with that, I'm very thankful to get to bring to you my next guest, Rick Campbell. Rick Campbell is Texan to the bone. As a matter of fact, Rick, if ever there were a Texas Titan whose roots run, purely as deep as they possibly can. Those roots are planted and watered and nurtured down around the Sabine River in center Texas in Shelby County. That is Rick Campbell. Rick is truly an American success story. In fact, when I called Rick up and I asked him to be on the podcast, and he was on my original list because he's a character. He is one of the smartest, kindest, funniest, and just pure East Texas guys that I know. So he was literally on my first list of guests that I wanted to reach out to. And I'm so glad that we finally made this happen. But he was the founder and CEO of Portacool. Now, you may not know what Portacool is, but I guarantee you have seen a Portacool. Any NFL football game, any college football game, if you look on the sideline and you see the little mobile air conditioner that they have, that is a Portacool. And Rick Campbell was the creator of that product, and he's the one who founded the company. And we're going to hear that story today. It's a remarkable success story. And when I called Rick up, he didn't even hesitate. He said, absolutely. I would love to do it. I've lived the American dream. The Portacool story is a great story, and I would love to share it with your audience. And I'm telling you, fasten your seatbelts, because Rick can cover about 3 decades in 30 seconds. He's fast talking. It's so fun listening to him tell this story. I really think you're going to enjoy it. So sit back and enjoy the story of Portacool. And just to let you know, if you want to know, well, how successful was it? I think he mentions it in the podcast. His exit was $70 million. So, yeah, worked out pretty well. It turns out that portable air conditioners they were a big hit. So anyway, please enjoy this episode of the Texas Titans podcast with my friend Rick Campbell. Thanks, folks. Hey, folks, before we get started today, I want to ask a special favor of you. I would like it if you wouldn't mind to go over to Amazon.com and check out a copy of my book, Push Play, Taking Your Life Off pause. This is an updated and revised version of my first book, Push Play, that basically documents my escape from corporate America. This is not purely a book about entrepreneurship and setting out on your own per se, more than any, although that is a huge bulk of the book because that's what I did. I took the leap at 28 to go into entrepreneurship, get out of corporate America, and start trying to curate and plan the blueprint for the life that I wanted to lead. But more than anything, what this book does is it describes in very simple, plain, literally black and white terms how to live your life on your terms, how to design a life, not just a job, not just a career, but the life that you want to lead. I've had a great time being on this journey, and it's not over yet. And another thing that I want you to know that I describe in this book that's one of the major revisions is I talk about some failures that happened between the first book and this one because it has not always been success and an upward movement. There have been some peaks and there have certainly been some valleys, and I describe that in the book. So please do me a favor, Amazon.com, push play, taking your life off pause, or you can also go to jasonrightnow.com and you can order my book there. It'll take you right to the Amazon page, jasonrightnow.com. I would be so grateful if you would pick up a copy. Christmas is around the corner. If you want a signed copy, let me know. Just shoot me an email at jason@textitans.com. I'll get you a signed copy. That might devalue the book, actually, so I don't know that I would recommend that. You'd probably be better off just getting one off Amazon. But seriously, please go read the book. And if you do, put it on social media, share it for me. This is guerrilla marketing. I don't have a big marketing budget. I self-publish this thing. I'm not pretending that this is a Random House or Simon & Schuster release. No, I self-published this thing. I created Texas Titan Media to self-publish this and get it out there and to get it to the world. And I need your help for just pure guerrilla marketing. So please, if you have a copy, share it on social media and go to Amazon and write a review. That would mean the world to me. Thank you so much, folks. Rick Campbell, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great.
Well, man, I tell you what, I am so excited to have you because like I said before we started is one, not only have you seen incredible success in business, but you are a seventh generation Texan.
I am.
And so and you're an East Texan. So I have a particular affinity for that because being a fifth generation East Texan myself, one of my favorite stories about whenever I moved back to East Texas, I finished up at Stephen F. Austin. I go to Houston for my first job, and then I moved to Tyler, and people would say, well, where are you from? I was very quick to tell them, well, I grew up and I am from Sulphur Springs. I moved here from Houston, but I didn't want them to be confused. I'm not a Houstonian. Right. I'm an East Texan.
There you go.
Because that's just how we are. So what I want to talk about today and what I want the listeners to hear is the story of Portacool, which was your business success story. I mean, literally, like you told me whenever I called you up, you said, hey, man, I've lived the American dream and I'm happy to tell that American dream story.
Absolutely.
And
it was one hell of a ride.
I mean, and it just, I mean, in every way you lived the American dream. But before we get there, I want to talk about the fact, because listeners, you have to understand, I am in Center, Texas today, and this is where Rick grew up. This is where his roots run really, really deep. And tell the listeners how it all started, going back to your great-grandfather, some of the stories that we were talking about before then, and let's just get this thing rolling.
All right. Well, back in the 30s, my grandfather graduated from UT in 1928. He was Alan Shiver's college roommate. I have his 1928 yearbook. It looks identical to my 1982 yearbook. And he came back to Center, Texas, and he ran a mercantile type store, like a Bell Stage department store on the square. We still have that building today. It's a Center Antique Mall. They sell antique fixtures and stuff in store today. We lease out that building. But my grandfather bought river bottom land on the Sabine River as he could back in the 30s and early 40s. He had sharecroppers. He accumulated over 15 and a half contiguous miles of the river. But when Toledo Bend Lake was built they came in and did eminent domain, and he had to sell his property for $115 an acre. The worst part is that he had a lot of pine plantations, and the lake came up a year and a half early, and he lost over $10 million in 1968 of timber, and he was only getting paid $17 a thousand.
Wow.
Now today, when I sell timber at Bone Hill, we average around $325 a thousand.
Right.
So, the economic driving factor of that, you're talking about today's term. You're talking about saying, hey, the lake's going to come up a year and a half early. You're going to lose $100 million worth of timber.
Wow.
Yeah. And they were only cutting 100-year-old trees back then.
Golly, that's amazing.
But 1990, me and my dad and my partner, Fred Wolf, went to Tenaha, Texas to meet with a guy named Weeks Crawford. And off to the side, he had this evaporative cooling system that he had developed for poultry houses to add on to a poultry house for evaporative cooling on henland houses. And basically, we took Weeks' idea. Weeks was our partner for a while, and then we bought him out. And I was coming back from Mississippi at 1 o'clock in the morning, and my partner called me, and Weeks had built about 50 of these Portacools, and they had they would do about 6,000 CFMs of air, and they would drop temperature about 10 degrees. And I can remember my partner going, hey, what do you want to do with this Portacool? And I said, well, I can see us using it on the sidelines. And it kind of started from there. I can remember calling and being blessed a lot of times. I was very blessed a lot of times. The good Lord blessed me. And that I called Kevin O'Neill, who was the athletic trainer for the Dallas Cowboys. And I said, Kevin, I've developed a product to cool down the sidelines. I would like to bring it and do a test and show you. And he said, just so happens we're doing a test in 2 weeks. We're, come show us your product. I'm walking off the field. We win the test. We've dropped the temperature 20 degrees. They're throwing a mist, and all we're throwing is cool air. And Jerry Jones says to me, now, you can make these out of plastic and kind of our cowboy color. And me being the salesman I am, I said, yes, sir, I can. And on my way back to center, I was calling my partner going, Fred, we got the cowboy deal, but we can't make them galvanized steel and make them look industrial anymore. We got to make them out of plastic, and we got to make them cowboy blue.
Right.
And
so that's how it started.
That's one of that. In 1993, we were on the sidelines. I drove my F-150, loaded up 4 Portacools, got a call when I was running the cattle auction from Kevin Bastine, who was a head equipment manager for the Washington Redskins, who later became the head trainer for the Houston Texans when they started up. But Kevin called me and said, can you be here on Monday night? And it was the first Monday night after the Cowboys had won their Super Bowl. And at that, I drove my F-150. I said, yes, sir, I can be there. I drove my F-150, drove up there, drove it 24 hours, got there on Sunday. And on Monday night at 9 o'clock, I'm sitting in a golf cart with Sonny Jorgensen. We were sipping on a little whiskey. And he had heard me tell the story of how it worked. He was handing out the brochures. And that night, he got Dan Deerdorf, Frank Gifford, and Al Michaels to come over there, and he handed each one of them a brochure, and he said, this young man is a young entrepreneur from East Texas. When you get a chance tonight, I want you to plug him. And what happened was Ricky Sanders scored a touchdown, and he would come stuff the gloves in the fan as it blew out. And I had a Panasonic 7-pound, 5-amp bag phone. It worked everywhere. I'm talking to Dad back home, and they'd rented a TV, and they were at the ye old pub watching. Everybody in Shelby County, I say everybody, a lot of people in Shelby County, because Van Spain had been on the radio saying Rick Campbell's driving his F-150 taking these Portacools. In Center Texas, a little town of 5,000, everybody, pretty much everybody knew. It was a big deal. Okay? Yeah. Big deal for us to be on Monday Night Football. They scanned down. And Ricky had just scored that touchdown. It was 21-7. It's the third quarter. I'll never forget. Ricky said, Mr. Campbell, he said, I hate to beat your Cowboys tonight. He said, yeah, I'm not liking this. He said, I'm probably going to score some more, Mr. Campbell. I hope you don't get too mad at me. He said, and Dad said, you do what you're supposed to do. He said, but it wouldn't hurt if you drop a few. and about that time, they scanned down and started talking about the Portacool. And Dad said, y'all see that Ricky talking to me? He was in the bar saying this, and he was on the phone. A landline.
Gosh.
He said, you see that them up there talking to me? He's talking to me,
Wow.
And so I can remember stories like that I could go on and on. The hard stories about when we were doing the Olympics in 1996, and we were doing the right after the Olympics was over, we did the Paralympics. There was a 4-day turnaround. Basically, if it wouldn't have been for me and Randy Floyd going to Stone Mountain, they called me the sheriff, because when you got there, ACOG had a warehouse downtown next to the sheriff's department. Not downtown, it was called the ACOG warehouse, and everything was neat, clean, and organized at that one. When you got out to the craft warehouse at Stone Mountain, it looked like they had a time bomb. You'd see a fan over here, and you'd walk down, you'd see 3 soccer balls here, and it was, to say it was in disarray, it's calling it good, okay? We ended up driving 18-wheelers, forklifts, filling out orders, because the first 2 days I went around trying to meet with the complex managers to set up my Portacools and fans from Granger. I couldn't do it because they were all at the warehouse, and there was this poor guy there, and it was so overwhelming to him, he just lost it. And me and Randy Floyd went and organized it for him, helped him. It is January the following year, and Joe Friedosio becomes the president of Walt Disney. And to show you, my dad used to tell me, if you got to dig a ditch, you dig it right, you dig it deep enough, and if you got to get your hands dirty, so be it. You dig it right. Don't let me come back and find this ditch dug 2 inches deep. Right. You dig it like you're supposed to dig it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Well, when you do hard work, Joe Friedosio rounds the corner, and to show the power of God, he rounds the corner. I'm talking to Joe Friedosio, and rounds the corner is Jim Choate, who is a regional operations manager for Granger. We partnered with Granger, and Joe Friedosio is telling me, I just became the president of Sports Authority of Walt Disney, and my first order is a $3.2 million order to W.W. Granger because of all your hard work. He said, I just found out how we pulled off the Paralympics. It's because the sheriff was out there organizing everything. And when you do hard work like that, but what are the odds that now Jim Choate was from Atlanta, Georgia, and I was working a trade show, a poultry trade show, right. But what are the odds of him walking around the corner at the moment that I'm talking to Joe? That's God stuff right there.
Wow. Well, but now you just, and for the listener, you got to understand something about Rick Campbell. He moves 150 miles per hour. He knows one speed, and that is hammered down. And so, because you just covered so much right there in that history, I want you to tell me, because, I mean, you go literally, I want to know when you look at this thing and go, I've got something, my partner and I, that we can take to the Dallas Cowboys. Because, I mean, that's a huge feat in and of itself. And, I mean, and I see it's trying to start this little media company. Whenever I want to interview a Rick Campbell, or I want to interview somebody they have no reason to listen to me. I mean, you and I, we had a friendship before this, but other people that I call up. But you decide, I'm going to get this on the sidelines of America's team. How did you plan for that, and what's the thought process? And is a lot of it, Rick, is it just believing if that's where I want it, I'm going to – kind of what's your mindset?
I believed in that product so much, faith. Yep. I knew it worked. I knew if I could get it in front of them, if I could get in the door, I could show them. I didn't have to talk much. Right. With Portacool, I never had to talk much. The product sold itself. I mean, you got in front of it, you felt that cool air, and you'd go, wow.
Right.
You know, most people would go, well, it works good here in this trade show because it's air conditioning in here, and it works great here. Right. And I said, well, it works great out in Houston, Texas, or in Hong Kong, where it's the most humid place in the world, because those evaporative cooling pads are getting a 78% evaporation rate. I said, back in the day, what you're talking about is a swamp cooler.
That's what I was going to bring up.
And a swamp cooler only got a 30% evaporation rate. And if you think about it, you only used a 2-inch aspen straw pad, and you ran water directly over. I said, we direct the water over the cooling pad. It's 6 inches thick, and because it gets a 78% evaporation rate, it's able to drop the temperature up to 20, 25 degrees. And I said, out in Phoenix, Arizona, if you put water in it and put that, you can't put enough water on it because it's evaporating so fast. But I can drop the temperature 45 degrees out in Arizona, and I can make an air conditioner obsolete.
Right. So, and how old are you about the time that you start Portacool?
Well, I was 60 now. That would have been about 25 years ago. So
wow.
So
you're a young
35-ish.
Man. Yeah, you're a young man.
I was a young man, and I, you know, my dad always taught me, if you believe in something, you just go after it, and I just had so much faith in the product.
Right. Yeah.
that I knew where, the very first trade show I went to was in Chicago. It was a dry cleaning and laundry show, and our first distributor, his name was Joe Lewenthal. I'll never forget Mr. Joe. He was a James Campbell of East Texas, in Louisiana, in the dry cleaning and laundry business.
Right.
He owned about 50 dry cleaning and laundry. He had a C&L Supply. He was from a little town outside of, I'll think of it in a minute. Anyway, I'm at this 2-day dry cleaning trade show in February. And when I got off, I had never been hardly 100 miles out of Center, Texas. I got off that plane in Chicago in February. It was cold, okay? It was so cold that I've been duck hunting a lot in East Texas, and I thought it was cold. I'm talking about it was freaking frigid cold. Right. I mean, I thought, what in the hell am I doing here? Right. I'm at a trade show, at a dry cleaning laundry trade show. I learned 2 things at that trade show. If you got a great product, you can be in Antarctica.
Right.
And if it gets hot there they want to be cooled, that Portacool will sell. I'm at this 2-day trade show. I sell 28 units. I come back home and I told Dad and my partner, I said, y'all get ready. This is going to be big. And Dad looked at the credit card and he says, well, according to where you went on the Million Mile and ate at Sullivan's, I can see how it better be big. And you say to some hotel where you paid $300 a night. Of course, my dad ain't ever stayed at anywhere that's cost over $75 a night.
Yeah.
And he said, it damn well better be big.
That's awesome. I love it. All right, but that brings me to the next point of this deal, because this is where I think it gets really awesome. You've got a great idea. You believe in it. Now you got to build a company around this thing. You got to build infrastructure. You got to figure out how we're going to manufacture it, how we're going to source it. Talk to me. That's what kind of blows my mind.
So we go to, we not only sell Portacool on the sidelines. That was really a marketing where we marketed it. Okay. Mm-hmm. We would sell product to the NFL, and we would sell one and give them 4, just to be there, for the marketing purpose,
sure.
But in the dry cleaning and laundry business, and the industrial and car dealerships and restaurants and military, we were selling product, and we were going to all these different trade shows, poultry, nursery. I could go on and on, car dealerships, and on and on. In every industry, there is a top-notch guy salesman that knows everybody, been there, done that. I went after those guys. You know where I learned that from?
Where?
George W. said, if I surround even though I'm a dummy, I may be considered a dummy, and I'm just a good old East Texas country boys that I always thought I was going to poke cows for a living. It's a sale barn. Mm-hmm. If you surround yourself around really smart people, you can look very intelligent. Yeah. And that's what I did.
Wow.
And I hired a guy by the name of Bill Lloyd, and a guy by the name of Dale Woods that were from W.W. Granger. They understood distribution, and I understood I first got to be able to distribute it before I can sell it.
Right.
And I got to learn how to distribute in the Grangers, in the Motions, in the Tractor Supplies, in the Northern Tools. Mm-hmm. We were Manufacturer of the Year for Granger. We were Manufacturer of the Year 3 years in a row for Napa. We were Manufacturer of the Year for Northern Tool Supply 2 years in a row. Wow. We were Manufacturer of the Year for Tractor Supply, I believe, once. But you know how many people get to be Manufacturer of the Year for W.W. Granger? Not many. Mm-mm, I mean, you better be dotting your I's and crossing your T's twice before you get to do. I mean, you got to do so many things and hit so many points. That was probably the highlight of my life, being Manufacturer of the Year and that was really during Bill Lloyd's. It was when I'd sold in 2006 and I was still around, and Bill got that designation, but I had helped build this company to that point, and to get those, when we were Inc. 500, when me and Fred were running the company, and Fred had my partner had a lot to do with helping me build the company. Right. I bought him out in 2003, and then in 2006, Miss Hunt was knocking on the door, and I kept saying no, and you'd think. My dad always said, when it gets to the point that you can't sleep at night, and I was worrying about motors coming in, and the stands that weren't in from China that were supposed to be in, and there were casters that weren't coming in, and it was keeping me up, and maybe I was drinking a little bit too much whiskey because I was worried about, and my hair was getting grayer and grayer, and I was worried all the time, and it had gotten so big that it was over my head. I mean, financially and It just got to the point, the stress level got to the point, it wasn't any fun anymore. And I know I needed a sugar mama.
Yeah.
And I picked H.L. Hunt's daughter,
Yeah.
who was worth $14 billion to take over. And she was a good sugar mama. She took Portacool to the next level.
Right.
And Bill Lloyd being president, because he was very, very important. I mean, Portacool wouldn't be what it is today if it wouldn't have been for Bill Lloyd.
Wow. Well, and it's very admirable that you say that, because I think, Ross Perot used to say the same thing. You surround yourself with the brightest people. That's what made, EDS and Pro Systems what it was. Tell the listener, and because, again, something we talked about before we got the recorder running, everybody sees Rick Campbell that's had wild success at this point. I mean, that's it. But you mentioned something there that I think is so important for everybody to hear, and it's a lot of the stories from entrepreneurs like you that I've had on this show. That's what they talk about are those times whenever you're sitting there and you're going, we've got a make or break moment here. If everything lines up just right, we're off to the races, especially like with where you were. I mean, it all of a sudden you had such a good product that it almost sold itself. Tell me about a time whenever it almost when you're just like, I just don't know if we're going to make it to the next.
2003, April 2003, when I bought Fred out, the company is $8.9 million in debt. Everybody in Center Texas thinks me and Fred are going bankrupt. Mm-hmm. And we were damn close to it. Mm-hmm. I bought Fred out. It was a horse race. Who could get the money first? Okay. Right. I met with a guy by the name of Will Zabronsky that went out and helped me find Wells Fargo. And Wells Fargo Asset Management Group, who was looking at 4 businesses a year that were failures that might make it. And my dad, I went to, this is a great story. I'm glad you asked about it. In November 5th, I'm sitting with Rick Perry and my dad at Four Seasons, and it's election night, and Rick's winning, beating Sanchez by 17 points. It's a walk in the park. Anyway, Rick Perry asked me, he said, hey, why are you getting turned down on your second loan? And I said, well, because I'm showing him everything I can on my financial statement. I said, I really don't know. And my dad says, because he's not using all of his resources. Rick turned to me and says, well, Rick, why don't you use all your resources? And I said, well, Dad, I'm putting my guns down on my financial statement. I'm putting my jewelry down, I'm putting down every damn thing I know to put down. He said, you hadn't asked me to help you. I said, Dad, you're 78 years old, man. You've built up. I can't ask you to put up everything. Mm-hmm. He said some of my best friends that have gone bankrupt live better bankrupt than they did when they were winning and blowing and going. And Rick Perry turned to me and he said, you know what you need to do, hotshot? I said, what? You need to swallow that pride and let your dad co-sign that note. So that's what I did.
Really?
That's exactly what happened.
Wow.
And Dad co-signed the note and allowed me to be able to borrow the $8 million, and he put up every freaking thing he had, man.
Well, and then now, and I can tell that makes you emotional, because now the pressure's really on. Talk about that, because now it's just taken a whole nother dimension.
It did. I stayed up late every night. I got up early every day, and I'm not a get up early man. Okay. Bill Lloyd knew the pressure that he just came on board, and I had to ask Bill. I said, you got to help me with this. A guy by the name of Nicky, I can't remember, from Napa came in. He flew in. He thought he was coming to look at a chicken coop type operation. Mm-hmm. He left here. He was on the phone. He'd seen our manufacturing facility, which is friggin' impressive. Mm-hmm. He was on the phone, and he was calling his regional operations managers, and he was saying, you're going to order 4 truckloads, you're going to order 5 truckloads, and talking about how the good Lord blesses you. He ordered like $3 million worth of product. Napa sold $6 million that summer. I paid off that note in September, and that Wells Fargo banker called me and goes, Rick, I always knew you were going to make it. There was no doubt in my mind. He said, but you're not supposed to pay off the damn note in 4 months.
Wow.
Paid it off in 4 months.
And that's one of the coolest parts, Rick, of getting to hear these stories. One of the stories that I heard, a guy by the name of Phil Burks, who's a very successful tech entrepreneur in Tyler. he was in the same situation. I mean, he was just about to go broke. And I mean, his company has flourished. And
I
he
had
knew,
one foot on the banana peel and the other one hanging over the grave, baby. I mean, I was there.
That's exactly.
I just wasn't willing to give up.
Well, and I want to get to that later too. I mean, that's key. But Phil said he literally needed $5,000 just to get to the next order, or just to keep some breath going. At the time, he prays, Lord, I've got to have this. An order comes in for $5,000 exactly, a consulting gig, just to give him enough to keep him going. And there's story after story like that. But now I want you to put on your mentor hat, because you just said something, an unwillingness to give up, leveraging all your assets, even if those assets you don't, or your resources that you don't want to go to, like having your father co-sign, but which, by the way, to the listener, they need to understand, because some of the people listening to this, and this is what I love about what I'm trying to do with this podcast, they're people that they think they want to be an entrepreneur. They think they've got a good idea, but man, it is not all roses. There are those moments where you have to do things and you don't think about that, about going and your father being willing to put his entire livelihood on the line to say, Rick, I believe in you.
Every bit of it.
I mean, they don't understand that. What do you think, if you had to sum up what you've got right there in you, has been the key to your success even before Portacool?
My relationship with God.
Awesome. And what does that look like for you?
You get stronger every day. I've been, parts of my life during that time period, I would live in the light. Mm-hmm. Then I would duck off in the dark, and I thought I was hiding. I was, there was some, I'll give an example. There was a lot of customers that wanted to go and have a nice dinner. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of customers that wanted to go have a nice dinner and go play some golf. And there was a lot of customers that would, not a lot, but a few that would want to maybe go out to dinner and have a little nightlife. Yep. And I went and had a little nightlife. Mm-hmm. That's when I lived in the dark. Mm-hmm. When I would go entertain them at a ladies' joint, mm-hmm. and the ladies would come and take off their tops and mm-hmm. do the little titty bar deal. Mm-hmm. Right. I regret I did that. Mm-hmm. I regret I did that.
Yeah. Well, and so now though that you came through that,
I've asked for forgiveness. And God forgave me, and I'm, I would say don't. I felt like I had to do it mm-hmm. to build my business. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to lose that customer. Yeah. I would say today to a guy, don't ever jeopardize your integrity. Mm. If you're a Christian, stay a Christian, mm-hmm. and don't stay in the light. Mm-hmm. Don't dive off into the darkness thinking that God's not watching, because I promise you, He's watching.
Right. And that's the thing too, Rick, that what you said in that I think a lot of people forget about, in business in particular, is it's just it's that little tiny lack of faith is what it is that puts you into those dark moments.
The devil loves to put. The devil would have had me in a titty bar every night if he could have.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And corrupting other people.
Yeah.
Because that's what I was doing. I felt like I was doing.
Yeah.
That's what God told me I was doing.
Yeah. Now, as far as your personal habits, not like I know you, and you're just a very charismatic, seemingly positive guy. You said something earlier, not quitting. You weren't going to fail. Talk to me about that fortitude. You wake up in the morning.
I was raised by the best parents. My mom told me always, if you want to do it, when I was 4'8" and playing wanting to go out for football, mm-hmm. she said, dynamite comes in small packages. Just be quick enough not to get hit. Right. And I was quick. Right. And those big guys that tried to hit me, they scanned me. They brushed me, but they never really hit me. Now, there was a guy in Jacksonville one night when I was a freshman playing varsity ball. Mm-hmm. His name was Robert Newhouse. He came around the corner, and I was cornerback. Yeah. And he was a senior at Hallsville. Yeah. He ran through me. Yeah, hit me. I didn't talk for 2 days. Okay. Yeah. No, I just always believed, always had faith that I could do anything I wanted to do if I really had it in my heart and I really wanted to do it. and you just keep trying.
Yeah.
Now there was some things that I tried. I tried to play basketball, and I can't play basketball today worth a dog.
Yeah.
And I couldn't play basketball back then worth a dog, but I wanted to play because all my buddies played. But I mean, there's some things it's just not going to work out, and when it's not going to work out. But as long as you give it 110% and you try, and it doesn't work out, then move on to something else that's in your heart.
Right.
But always, I've been taught by my dad and my mom, whatever you do, be happy doing it. If you go to work every day and you're not enjoying it, find something else, because you're never going to be good at it, and you're going to suffer in life because of it. And that's where the devil looms.
Yeah.
That's where he's at. Yeah. He when you're weak and not enjoying what you're doing, that's when he pounces on you, and that's when he gets you to take more drinks than you should, or go do things you shouldn't. And I just know that you should be happy, but there's not anything, anybody can do anything if their heart is in it. And yeah, if you only got two arms, or you don't have two arms, you can't play baseball. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But I mean, but if you really want something bad enough, you can do it.
Absolutely.
And in this country,
yeah,
it's still available out there for you to be successful and go get it and live. Because I swear to God, I thought I was always going to be punching cows at a sale barn and hustling loans from my dad's bank.
Yeah.
I never dreamed I'd get to travel the world, drive an Indy car, do all the different things that I got to do, and see all the different people I got to meet, sit in a golf cart with Sonny Jorgensen. Are you kidding me? And drink a little whiskey, and him get up and start talking about my product. Are you kidding me?
Right.
That was humble pie. That was humble stuff there. But I mean, I got to do all kinds of neat stuff and meet people I never dreamed I'd get to meet.
Yeah. Now let me ask you this. So one of the things, and I'm kind of in this mode right now, and this is kind of like a second venture for me. My first business, I moved back to East Texas to buy my first real estate company, and I didn't appreciate it. I didn't realize how much fun I was having at the time. I got bored, and I sold my company. Now I'd give anything to have it back. Big mistake. I didn't enjoy the process, because it's easy when you're going through those times like where you were, where you're millions in debt. You're trying to figure out, how do I get a note to keep some breath in this thing? But then when you look back on it, and now that you've been on both sides, you've built the business from inception to getting that first big order on the sidelines with the Dallas Cowboys, the struggle, having to go to your dad, to a huge equity event. Throughout all of it, do you miss the journey? Because I have a hard time. Like right now, I'm trying to build this little media company. Okay, and I want to enjoy it.
260 days a year.
Yeah.
You think I'm on fire now? Dude, I was like burning both ends of the candle and in the middle. And, it cost me a family.
Yeah.
It cost me a divorce because I was gone so much.
Yeah.
No, I do not miss running and gunning. It wore my ass out.
Yeah. Yeah. But you mentioned that. You said you realized that, and that's why you were smart enough. See, that's where I wasn't.
It would have killed me.
Yeah.
It would have killed me.
See, what I did is, instead of getting prepared to do it, I went too early.
There is a thing called stress. It's real.
Yeah.
And it was working on me.
Yeah.
I mean, it was my stress level was, I don't know how they level, but from 1 to 100, mine was like 87.
Yeah.
At that point.
Yeah.
And it'd been at 87 for a year or two.
Yeah.
And it just got to where it wasn't any fun.
Yeah.
I dreaded going to work. I was making millions of dollars every month.
Right.
But I dreaded it.
Yeah.
And when you dread what you do going to work, you need to get your ass out of there.
Yeah. Yeah. And
find something that you love. And I don't care if it's pitching tiddlywinks.
Yeah.
If you can make money at it and survive, go pitch them.
Exactly. Well, and I'm going to take that segment of this podcast and make sure both of my daughters listen to it, because that's exactly, I'm 44 years old, and that's exactly why I'm sitting here with a microphone in front of you and me, is because I'm pursuing things now that I enjoy and I love. And they're both in college, and I try to tell them, and I do some guest lecturing over at SFA, and I tell those young students, if you're just looking for a big payday, you're going to be miserable. But if you find something you love to do and it pays you $40,000 a year, then guess what? If you really love it enough, you will live a $40,000 a year lifestyle to support the vocation you enjoy versus a $400,000 a year lifestyle having to do a job you despise. Am I right?
Look, I made a lot of money. Okay. We're talking over 70 million. Okay.
Right.
the best thing I did is when I did that deal, I took 4 guys with me and gave them 30%, 10%, 10%. Okay. I made those 4 guys millionaires, because they helped me get to where I was going.
Right.
It's not about the money. And I will tell you, money don't give you happiness. I've been through one badass divorce, okay? Miserable. Went through depression. I had $10 million sitting in the bank. I still went through that depression. It ain't about the damn money. I promise you, I was much happier in that segment of life when I was going through that divorce, that second divorce, and that misery of that sucker. When I was making $800 a month and struggling, and I would have 70, even though I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth, supposedly, when I had $75 at the end of the month, I was much happier than those 4 years I went through. Okay.
Wow.
So money don't make happiness. Matter of fact, money, the more you make and the more you have, it makes it a little bit easier. You can pay your damn credit card bill off and all of it in 1 month versus having to say, okay, I'm going to pay $300 on it this month and $400 on it next month. And maybe next month I won't spend it and put more money on it and get it paid off, so I don't have to pay this 18% interest. But money does not make you happy.
Yeah.
Doing what you love makes you happy, and being with people that you love that are around you make you happy. Family makes you happy.
Right.
But money is the root of all evil.
Yeah.
And it really is.
Wow. Well, and I think that's such a profound message, because that's what I'm trying to preach to my daughters. It took me forever, man. I was chasing dollars, for forever, because one, makes you feel good about yourself.
That's what we're taught.
Yeah, it's what
the more you make, the better off you are.
Exactly.
That is not true.
I agree.
It is not true.
Let me ask you this, because again, we talked about this whenever we first started the podcast. Being an East Texan and having a story like yours, how much does it mean to you to be not only a Texas success story, but an East Texas success story from Center, Texas? I mean, I'm from Sulphur Springs, and we're barely 2 times, a little bit over 2 times bigger than Center, but still, I mean, that means 15,000 or whatever. Yeah. So what does it mean to you to have had the success and to still be home and to have that?
Being able to stay home, it's where I get to go duck hunting. It's where I was raised. It's where I played softball and baseball and football. I went to high school here. All my friends are here. Being home and not having to go to Houston and Dallas, even though that's 6 years ago when traffic was bad here because of oil and gas. I called a friend of mine. I said, man, I'm in traffic. It's going to take me another 10 minutes to get across town. He said, where are you, Rick? In Houston or Dallas? I said, hell no. I'm in Center by Texas. He said, traffic? You don't know what traffic is. I said, yeah, I do. It's taking me 10 minutes to get across town from General Shelters to Portacool. Being in Center, Texas means all. In Center, I got to be involved in Rotary and Ducks Unlimited and the steer committee. I got to be involved in organizations. If I'd been living in a big city, in the suburbs, the odds of getting to be involved in those different organizations. And I'm a type guy. I like to be involved in different things and do for the Chamber of Commerce, and I got to be in fire department. 27 years volunteer. Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. I got to be involved. It meant all. It means all the. And raising my kids in Center, Texas, versus raising them in some where they're going to be bust in Dallas or it's priceless.
Right.
You can't put a price on it.
Well,
priceless.
Well, and that's one of the things. I mean, that's exactly what got me back to East Texas. I finished up at SFA. My first job's in Houston. Rylan and Abby are 2 and 3, and I'm like, I got to get back to East Texas and raise these girls. I want to own my own business. And I was like you. I mean, I didn't care what I had to do. I wanted to be in East Texas. And one of the things, for the exact same reasons, I wanted to be involved in my community, involved in church, be in Rotary, do those things. And that's one of the things I haven't mentioned yet, is that if ever there were someone who has put back into their community, because usually I call you Judge, you're Judge Campbell.
Right.
I mean, you're county judge and had absolutely nothing to gain by getting into county government. And for those of you who don't know anything about local government, county government in the state of Texas is a mess. When you're a county judge, you have no defined power. You're trying to keep a bunch of county commissioners with their own agendas and their own constituents always wanting something, keep them in line and keep them on your side. It's a very, very difficult job. You were a volunteer fireman who also, by the way, whenever I first met you, had just purchased a truck for your local fire department. I mean, you are somebody that you don't only get involved, brother, you go head first, all in. And what is it like? Again, it's one thing to be in the Rotary Club and be there to do toy drives and, fundraisers and all that. But you decided to go and be the county judge. What was it that made you want to be that involved?
I'd served on the school board with John Tomlin. He got pancreatic cancer, and I had gone up to talk to him. And John's a great guy, but he's kind of contemporary. I mean, he was kind of honorary. I don't think the whole time I was on school board with him, I don't think we ever voted the same way twice. But he was a Republican, the first Republican ever elected. I went to talk to him. And he said, "Hey, Rick," he said, "this county is growing like crazy. This oil and gas is coming in here. We need tremendous. We don't have the infrastructure. You have the contacts in Austin that what it's going to take. I don't. I got pancreatic cancer. If I have a miracle happen, I'll be around. If not, if I'm gone, would you please take over, and would you please help Shelby County become what the county it needs to be, and get all these roads paved, and get Shelby County what it needs, And the great thing about I don't have to live in Houston and Dallas. George W. drove down here to see me and Dad, and it's Mercury Marquis. And I don't know if people know it, but in St. Augustine back in the 50s, there was LBJ and Ben Barnes and Ed Clark down there. The power brokers of the world were from St. Augustine, Texas. I'm not saying I'm a power broker, but I can swing a bat.
Right, exactly.
And if I need something from Austin, I can make a phone call. And I'm not saying I always get it, but I always get them to answer my phone call.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, though. I mean, you have to earn that, though, Rick. And that's what you've done.
I earned it.
Right.
I worked hard.
And
for Rick Perry, George W., and for all. My daddy saw one man change the United States Senator's vote in 1960, and he was in the butane business. And Ralph Yarber voted to put in a Huxley gas system, and my dad had to go pick up 400 tanks. That was a fourth of his business, okay? He said if one man from Center Texas, and Mr. Taylor, Duke Taylor, was the one that made that phone call to Mr. Yarber to change his vote, to put that rural gas system in. My daddy had to go pick up 400 tanks, okay? He lost a fourth of his business. He said if politics is going to work that way and politics is going to affect my business, I want to be the man to at least be able to get their ear to stop some craziness like this, because they spent $6.2 million putting in a rural gas system, and it was for the poultry farmers, and they got to use natural gas if they wanted to.
Right.
You know how many people out there use natural gas today? Probably less than 20%.
Yeah,
they all use butane.
Yeah, butane tanks. Yeah.
Anyway, when George W. left that day, you know what my dad said? He said, "I think I'm there."
Yeah, that's a pretty good indicator. That's a good indicator. And that's good, because I was wondering, because I know that's something that I generally.
But I've tried to follow in my dad's footsteps.
Yeah.
And it's not, it's the deal that, I get because I don't hardly ever get a picture made with anybody.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not why I'm involved. It's really and truly to help people. It's, my dad talks about helping, getting Lloyd Benson. My dad was a Democrat, but before he switched over
all
parties
East Texans were.
Yeah.
All East Texans were.
And we got Rick Perry elected. But my dad talks about the story of helping the vet get his shoe size right. And you not talking to Lloyd Benson. Now, he could have if he wanted to, but he talked to Lloyd Benson's staff that helped this man get the right shoe. Well, to me, it's helping people. And my friends that know me, I don't give a damn about going to the mansion, or I'm invited to the Christmas party, to go to the mansion. I'm not going to the mansion. I don't, I want to cut through the red tape to help people that have an entrance at a TxDOT saying it can only be 30 feet wide. Well, it needs to be 45 feet.
Yep.
I like making that call to the governor and saying, governor's staff. I never talk to the governor hardly. I can call him right now if you want to. We can put him on the radio. But I like talking to the staff and say, look, I need some help here. We need it to be 45 foot wide. We need to add 15 foot instead of being 30.
Right.
And getting help for commerce. But I helped one guy that Dolph Briscoe got what he was driving a 1965 Honda motorcycle, and he got run over when he was a teenager by a drunk, and he got prosthetics.
Mm-hmm.
Well, 35 years later, his prosthetics aren't working, and Rick Perry got him new prosthetics. I like helping that guy.
Yep.
I like cutting through the red tape, helping those people.
Yep.
It ain't about being able to run. I don't give a damn about going to Austin and getting pictures of Rick Perry.
Right.
What I want to do is help people. I want to help people, and like my daddy taught me, let's help Shelby County and East Texas grow. Let's make this the best place to be.
Right.
And we are making it the best place to be because there's too many people moving into it.
Yeah,
in this area.
I guarantee you, it has caught fire, and I love that story. It's very similar to the one that Kevin Eltife told whenever I interviewed him. And, that's why Kevin became a city councilman in Tyler, and later mayor, and then state senator, is because he was developing a piece of real
he was
estate.
a KA. He lived across the street when I was a DU going to UT.
I knew he was a KA.
We were in the Tyler Rose Festival.
No, he wasn't a KA. He was a
SAE.
There you go, SAE.
Yeah, we were in the Tyler Rose Festival together. We escorted. I escorted Sarah Hightower.
Is that right?
That's right.
Wow.
I think he escorted. Maybe it might have been Ramey, who was queen.
How funny.
Yeah, but that's when we became friends.
Well, Kevin is a dear friend of mine. He was one of the first interviews I did, and that's how he got into politics. And he told me, he said, Jason, he said, it wasn't that they told me what I wanted to do to develop my corner, which is now the corner of Chimney Rock and Broadway in Tyler, Texas, which makes all kinds of sense, and it was the way they were making him, instead of just have it was basically a drop off from the sidewalk to his entrance. And he said, it wasn't that they were telling me no, it was how they told me no.
Right.
It's like, I'm trying to develop something to make the city better. And that got him into politics. That's what I used to tell people whenever I, became a city councilman. Why would you want to do that? My answer was always, because if you're in a crowded room and big decisions are being made, I would rather be on the front row or maybe at the table where the decision's being made, so I can at least stop something bad or encourage something good, versus just being in the back row going, boy, I hope this thing works out.
Right.
It sounds like that's what you've done.
I ain't one of those that's going to sit in the back row.
No, I know that.
I'm going to be up there talking one way or the other.
I know
either for it or against it, but I'm going to be on one side or the other.
I know that. But and thank God that we've got people like you who are willing to do that. And that's what, everyone, because my goodness, the world we live in, that there is a nasty, awful side of politics. And there are some people that are just out there.
I've seen some dirty politics,
it's
man.
bad. But then you got guys like
I've
you.
seen them find a lean-to deer stand out in the middle of the wilderness,
Yeah.
so they could kick me off the Parks and Wildlife Department, which was absolutely asinine. All K. Bailey Hutcherson.
Really?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
Charles Nash out of that little down there close to San Antonio, has a car dealership.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, that was a nasty side of politics for me.
And there is some, but then you've got guys like you that just want to help their community, help East Texas, and I'm here to tell you, thank you, brother. Thank you for what you have done, because
Well, I'm involved in it because of my daddy.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the one that kind of directed me. I'll tell you a story. When I was 12 years old, he gave me about 400 bumper stickers, Dolph Briscoe bumper stickers.
Yeah.
And he said, go put these out,
Yep.
Now, he meant ask somebody if they wanted them. So I pulled up to every car on the square and around the square and close to the square. And I came back in about 2 hours. He said, you get all those bumper stickers out already? I said, yes, sir. I put them on every car. And he said, what? You didn't ask anybody. You know what? He said, well, I guess if they get mad, they'll just take them off. I put them on every damn car on the square. His place of business is just right off the square behind the jail.
Right.
I rode around on my bicycle. And back then, I rode my bicycle to school when I was in third grade. I worked at the Bryce's grocery store on the square. You know, I still got the first 50-cent piece my grandfather gave me when I used to sweep the floor, even though I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth. You know, I hear this crap all the time now. You know, people don't know my story. They don't know that I worked in the hayfield and hauled watermelons and worked at the sale barn, and I got dirty and delivered portable buildings. All they see now is I'm chairman of the board of a bank. They think I'm a billionaire, and they think I'm worth, you know, got there just because Dad gave it all to me, which is bullshit.
Right. Well, and well, I know it's not the truth, and that's why you're on the podcast. It's funny you say that. You know, talking about politics, I guess, and this just occurred to me. My political career sort of started in Center, Texas, because when I was at SFA, the first campaign I ever volunteered for was Wayne Christian.
Wayne Christian, my brother-in-law.
Whenever he was running for state rep for the first time, Eric Gobel, who was the president of the student body, recruited me to help with that campaign. And so, man, I guess I've got some, so my political roots run all the way to Center, Texas. Isn't that something?
That is something. Small world.
Well, Rick, this has been great. Now, one of the questions I love to ask my guests, especially someone like you who it's obvious is going to have some thoughts on this matter. You've lived an incredible life. Like you said, you've lived the American dream. When it's all said and done, you know, there's a book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, that Stephen Covey wrote, and there's one chapter where he says, all right, imagine you're walking down the street and you hear music, and you notice that the music is coming from a church, and you walk in and you realize you're at a funeral. And as you walk up closer to the casket, you realize you're at your own funeral. And that's where he says, now close the book and decide, how do you want to be remembered? What do you want to be said? When this ride is over and done, how do you want Rick Campbell, Judge Campbell, to be remembered?
It would just be Rick. It would never be Judge.
Okay.
And I would want them to remember that man always was willing to help people. That's it.
Simple enough. Simple enough. Well, you have helped me a great deal today by coming on the Texas Titans podcast, brother. Thank you for saying yes. Thank you for doing this for me.
You bet.
I appreciate you, brother.
You bet. I enjoyed it.
Likewise.
Hey, folks, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Texas Titans podcast. Before you go, I wanted to let you know where you can find us out there on the interwebs. You can go to show notes as well as listen to all the past episodes and look for upcoming shows at textitans.blog. Also, that has all the different formats that you can listen to the show on if you go there. So textitans.blog. You can also go to jasonwrightnow.com. That has not only a link to the podcast, but it also has a link to my Make Your Own Rules blog that I think you'll enjoy, so please check that out. Also, it has information about my executive coaching business, speaking, and anything else like that. So jasonwrightnow.com. That's literally just my name, jasonwrightnow.com. On Twitter, I'm at jasonwrightTX. I would really appreciate a follow. I have not been a big Twitter user, so I need you guys to help me with that. So please take the time to go out to jasonwrightTX, find me, and follow me. I'm trying to get more active with it, and so if you'll engage with me, I'll try to do a better job of engaging with you. So I would appreciate that. And then on Instagram, I'd really appreciate a follow there. I'm at Jason Wright Now. Again, my name, Now. So please follow me on Instagram. And then on Facebook, I'm also at Jason Wright TX. So check us out there. And I'm also on LinkedIn, so look for me there. I try to use as many platforms as possible to let you know about upcoming shows, past shows, and then also just anything that I find interesting. I'm trying to push it out and get better with the social media. So please check us out there and follow us. I would be most grateful. And also, please do not forget, it means the world to me for you to go to iTunes, give us a rating. Right now, we've got that 5-star rating. I'm hoping to hold that. Please, please, please. The comments that people are writing are so very kind. Thank you so much. It means the world to me. And that's how we keep moving up in the ranks. And right now, we're crushing it with downloads. The show has really had incredible feedback thanks to you guys. So I'm grateful. Please keep that momentum going by giving us a review on iTunes. Thanks so much and have a great day. And as always, I could not be more grateful for you listening. Thanks.